Oklahoma and Kansas also kick it off this week. Joe, Oklahoma almost had the scare of their life. UCF, the Fighting Malzahns, almost pull off the upset against the Sooners. But now Oklahoma has Kansas this week. I do think that Brent Venables said something interesting that I really loved. I saw a clip of Brent Venables, and he said that, listen, when we were down and we were fighting and we were trying to get back in this game, everybody in America wanted Oklahoma to lose. And you know what the truth is? I felt that one in my soul because he's right. I was cheering for UCF. I was cheering for the Fighting Malzahns. I'm like, pull the upset. I just love upsets. It has nothing to do against Oklahoma. Nothing at all against Oklahoma. I just love chaos. That's why I love when Deion wins, because as the Joker says, it's chaos around college football. The best thing for Oklahoma for this year so far just happened to them last week. They know that they can get taken down by a team. If they're looking past anything else, they can get taken down. Good. You mentioned this earlier in the week. Good teams find ways to win. Okay. And they do. Good teams do find ways to win. Maybe they got a little bit of a scare, but I will tell you something. Central Florida had a lot of success on the edges and running the football at crucial times. Kansas is not a team that if you just play lackluster against, they'll run the ball all on you. Devin Neal, Highshaw, both of them, they will go off on you if you're not careful. And here's another thing too, Joe. They are me and Kansas, they are so multiple in the air. Did you know that 4 players have more than 2 touchdowns, okay, from their receiving core? I do like Oklahoma here because of the scare that they got last week, but I do see the chink in the armor if they're not careful.
I think the way that you've laid this out is perfect. One thing that is advantageous.
Every time you say that, I feel like the world's coming to an end.
Screw you. What I was going to say, though, I think an advantage for Oklahoma is they got that crappy game out of their system. They got the UCF game out of their system. And
with a win.
Right, with the win. And I think you come into that type of a week of practice saying to yourself, all right, guys, we can't do that again. We have to correct the mistakes. We have to be ready to go. We can't do this against a better opponent in Kansas. We have to play our best football. And I mean, Texas kind of did that when they played Kansas and they went up against Jason Bean, who is the backup quarterback filling in for Jalen Daniels, who's reportedly questionable, doubtful for this game. But I think there is a path for Kansas to pull the upset. There's a path because of the weaknesses that showed up against UCF. And you hit the nail on the head. Devin Neal is a really good running back. And I would argue top 3 in the Big 12, top 10 in the country. He is a phenomenal football player. He's going to be.
Who would you put ahead of him in the Big 12?
Brooks from Texas, and
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
He might be number 1. He might. I just loosely threw out number 3. He might be the best running back in the Big 12. Ollie Gordon's number 1.
Oh yeah, good.
That kid's been insane.
Yeah,
by the way, talk about a kid who should be on the Heisman list. Not to upset you.
Did you see running and did not put Jaden Daniels on there?
And the hilarious part is that the Heisman has their own podcast now, and they had Jaden Daniels on it today.
I saw that. Anyway,
that's brutal.
I'll talk to you about that off air. Continue.
Okay. Their offensive line, they've got 2 of the better offensive linemen in the conference. Michael Ford, Dominic Pooney have been fantastic. And I think a really interesting one, too. They've got 2 really good tight ends. We don't see a lot of teams that have 2 really good tight ends.
Agreed.
Mason Fairchild, Jared Casey have been strong players. Fairchild is obviously the more productive one of the 2.
Yep.
But, man, when you've got a good tight end, you've got multiples of them. It helps the run game, as we've seen. But at the same time, you've got that weapon to go to with Fairchild. I think that this roster looks pretty good offensively, and that's how you keep up with Oklahoma. You're probably not going to slow them down. You're just not going to. Even though their defense has been strong at times, you're just not going to do it. But does this team have that roster to go shot for shot with them? I would say so. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try and move the ball quick and attack you in space. They got to find a way to keep up with Oklahoma.
Kansas kept that game really close with Texas early. They ran the football highly effectively, and I do think Oklahoma and Texas are pretty equal when it's all said and done. Now, I'm not saying that this game will be very much the same, but I do think it's got the chance. Joe, I'm old enough to remember a couple of weeks ago, Kansas in that first half was pushing Texas around. Okay?
Yeah.
And another thing for Oklahoma, if they're not careful, Joe, if Dylan Gabriel does not have success running the football, I don't know how much success they have. Let me tell you why. Marcus Major and Walker, the backup running back, both of them aren't eclipsing over 5 yards a carry.
No.
They're not having a lot of success at running the football with their backs in between the tackles. I think that is a problem. Listen, I know that Kansas is a lot of things. If they had Jalen Daniels, I actually don't know if I wouldn't pick them to get the upset in this one if he was actually playing, but he's not. So I'm going to have to go Oklahoma. But I do think that if Oklahoma's not careful, look, Kansas can run the ball. They play tough. I love Lance Leipold. I think he's a tough guy, head coach. They just don't have the green grass athletes when it's at the end of the day. Like, for example, I do think UCF has some green grass athletes. They got some dudes that can run.
They do.
I don't know if Kansas does. If this does get into a little bit of a shootout, okay, to some extent because they're able to run the ball, which I don't think it will. But if it gets a little bit like, so for example, Texas had a lot of firepower coming back and winning that football game.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I tell you what, I don't know if Oklahoma necessarily, if they're not trained punch for punch. Look, I'm just telling you, they don't necessarily have a great running game. If you take that away from them, I do wonder what would happen because that's a lot of part of what UCF, I saw Pro Football Focus said in the first half that UCF was only allowing 2 yards a carry. Like,
is that really?
Yeah. Well, now listen, I did not go and view that. Okay, personally, meaning I did not take that stat down. I saw it from PFF today. If you do that again, you're going to be in trouble. That's the only reason why I went and looked at their backs the way that I did. I was like, damn, lean backs only got 3.9 yards per carry. That's not good enough. Doesn't matter. I'm still taking Oklahoma here.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take Oklahoma to win this game. And the biggest factor is what you just said. The first thing, literally the first thing that I looked up when I was putting my notes together was, is Jalen Daniels available? When is his timetable to return? And it sounds like he's progressing, but he's a couple weeks short, if not a week short, of being available for this game. Jason Bean is actually a very good runner, very good athlete. And we saw that
he can pick him up and put him down. And look, he's thrown for almost 1,000 yards and has 9 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Well, okay, so that was what I was going to get to. He ripped off that really good run against Texas, and we know that the guy can move. I'm just not really threatened by him as a passer. I think that Jalen Daniels is a whole head stronger than Jason Bean as a passer. And this happened against Texas. This happened against Texas where they ran all over him in the first half, and then they locked it down and said, all right, we know how to stop him. We're going to completely slow down your run game. We're going to dare you to throw the football, and you're not going to find ways to do it. They connected on one deep pass, and then the rest of the game, they struggled. I don't think that they're going to have much success throwing the football. And because of that, Oklahoma's probably going to win this football game.